What is up, everyone? My name is Brandon Ferst, aka FerstReport, and it is October 1st, 2020, Thursday to be exact. And you know what that means? It is the call to post. Myself and Southern California handicapping legend Raider Jim breaking down Thoroughbred racing. And like I said, every time that we have these shows here on Thursday, so much fun. A lot of knowledge is being dropped, and anytime you can sit down and talk to Raider Jim for about 45 minutes to an hour, you're gonna learn a lot. It's a big reason why I'm a big fan of this show. So without further ado, Raider Jim, how are you doing on this beautiful but rather warm Southern California Thursday?
Definitely a warm day, and it's a pleasure to be with you as always, Brandon. And yeah, and anytime Brandon can keep me to only talking for 45 to 60 minutes, he's done his job, and he's doing it a lot better than most people can. Horse racing has always been a favorite sport of mine to follow, and finding out that Brandon and I have that common interest back in the spring, and we've been talking about it weekly and throughout the week, and we were online doing what we could do to communicate over the Saturdays of the Del Mar race season. And it's just been wonderful finding a counterpart out there who's got the same interest that I do.
Yeah, and it's great because horse racing is kind of a community. You're almost playing against the house. It's almost like a blackjack effect. Now, you don't want to get your bullhorn out and scream about that 10-1 shot in the paddock that you have a feeling about, because then the odds go out of control. But sharing knowledge is, something that it's almost a currency in the sport. And it more so than your normal win-loss over-under bets. I talk about it a lot. Horse racing betting is very different. You can literally bet on a horse to finish third and win more than possibly if it would have won, or however the odds roll. Also, when you put in your bets, the odds aren't locked on when they are. A lot of things can happen, but in terms of the community of it, I think that's what I missed the most about this summer. It was a great summer at Del Mar. We've talked about it. Hats off to everyone involved. Not just Del Mar, really everywhere, including Breeders' Cup, to deal with what was going on. Get everything done in a safe manner. That's the most important thing. And we had as much fun as you can have remotely. Obviously, technology made things easier. But I think I really miss going to the track, kind of, overhearing somebody and just being like, yeah, well, did you see that race that he ran here? And then just starting up a conversation, going your separate ways. 2 races later, you come back to the paddock and you see the same guy. It's just different things like that. Definitely miss that, but we will hopefully get that back. At least in California, some states are getting it back. But in California, Hopefully we'll get that back next year. And really want to start this podcast. The main part of this podcast is, of course, I know it's October 1st, but it is a Preakness preview. If that's not 2020 for you, we still need to figure out the Triple Crown. There will obviously be no Triple Crown horse, but the third leg will be going off this Saturday, October 3rd at Pimlico. A very, very interesting race. We will get to that, but I do just want to touch on a couple things from this past weekend. And the Southern California meet, or the summer SoCal meet is wrapping up at Santa Anita. I think it finishes up, and the Bing Crosby Stakes will go through. But in terms of the big stuff, the meets are kind of finishing up. Everyone's getting set for the Breeders' Cup in a month. For me, the most impressive horse that I saw on the West Coast this year was Princess Noor. And this is a horse that won the Del Mar debutante and raised a lot of eyebrows, and is now more than likely going to go into its Breeders' Cup division race as a 2-5, 3-5 favorite. I mean, that's what they were talking about on Saturday after the just dominant. I mean, I urge you all to go check out that race. When you see a jockey win by 8 to 10 lengths and they are holding the horse up, I mean, that horse probably could have ran another mile. And it was just a dominant horse. Keep an eye on this horse. A lot of things have to go right, especially with everything we have going on. But this is, for me, a horse that I think we could be possibly seeing in Kentucky at Churchill next year as possibly one of the top 3-year-olds. Now, a filly, not always going to be the first Kentucky Derby favorite, but I really think this horse is special. We will see, obviously, going on. That's more looking towards next year, but she is going to have a very big, and there are so many Breeders' Cup races and there's so many wording that's different. I'm not 100% sure I believe it's the juvenile filly, but don't quote me on that. I know she's going to the Breeders' Cup and she will be racing in that division, but like I said, the wording in a lot of those is a little difficult, so I don't want to be quoted and be wrong. And then one last thing on Santa Anita this past week, we obviously saw Maximum Security. If you're a fan of this show, pretty much outside of our names, Maximum Security has been the other name that's been brought up more than any other. It went out in the Awesome again in another win and you're in situation, going up against Improbable, a horse that it's beaten handily, and all the questions that I thought were answered with a really good Breeders' Cup run, Pacific Classic run at Del Mar, those same questions reared their head again. It was a very subpar run as Improbable really ran away from the field, and now all of a sudden is the number 1 in the standings for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Very interesting to see how that will go. That is, of course, the biggest race on the calendar. Very impressive to see Improbable. Those were my takeaways from Santa Anita this past weekend. Obviously, Santa Anita isn't used to playing second fiddle to a Triple Crown race, kind of the same thing Del Mar had to deal with about a month ago. So it's not a very exciting weekend this weekend. Really anywhere outside of Pimlico. There's only one win and you're in, and it's the Preakness. All other tracks are pretty much conceding the eyes to Pimlico. But Santa Anita had a very big weekend last weekend, and they're going to have big weekends up until Breeders' Cup. But this weekend, a little slower than normal.
That's correct. And on the Princess Nor line, one of the things that Brandon and I often discuss throughout the summer, when you have the favorite out there, 2 to 5, 3 to 5, even money, favorites like that. One thing that we impressed upon anybody who was listening is, if that is your favorite, the one thing to keep in mind is somebody has to come in second, somebody has to come in third. So by all means, you want to take some of your safe money and put it on that favorite, if that is the manner in which you like to place your bets. But look for that horse who the money line is moving from the time they post it to an hour or so, or that last hour before they close the windows, and see who's got the most motion on it. And it got to be kind of a joke, but not necessarily a joke. It was somewhat serious. If you saw a Philip D'Amato, if you saw a Doug O'Neill attached to a horse, that horse in the morning line was at 15 to 1, and an hour before the race, all of a sudden they're bet down to 6 to 1. You could pretty much guarantee that if you took a show ticket on that horse, you were going to collect at the window. That's the other thing we always impressed upon the listeners. Winning at the racetrack means that when you make a bet, you go to the window and you get your wager back plus some change. Of course, the better the payoff, the better the victory, but it means that you're going back and you're always walking away with more than you bet. So that's another thing we like to emphasize week in and week out.
Yes, definitely. And I kind of touched on it a little earlier. It's horse, it's almost like, I really do prefer when they say handicapping. I know that's kind of like a pretentious, like, oh, I'm not a bettor, I'm a handicapper, but I do kind of think that, because we're not looking like, okay, for example, tonight's game, the Jets and the Broncos, goodness gracious, you couldn't pay me to watch that game, but there's only 2 or 3 really ways you can bet that. Now, you can get crazy into prop bets here and there, but really you got the over-under, maybe you got halftime score, blah, blah, blah. But in horse racing, I mean, you can find a way to bet every single horse in the race. I don't really think that's the right way to go, because you won't win money, but there is a way really to bet every single horse. There's so many different ways. And I love what Raider Jim said about the window. If you can go back to the window and get your money back and a little bit more, you are going to do just fine. My dad always used to say, if you left the track and you could put some gas in your car and pick up a burger on the way home, you had a good day, especially if you went to Del Mar. I mean, look, I am spoiled. The only track I've ever graced or bet at has been at least live has been Del Mar, and I'll be okay spending $40 and spending my 4.5, 5 hours at Del Mar. I'm okay with that. I think that's a fair trade. But more than likely, I am usually leaving with a burger and some gas in the tank.
There you are.
It is time to look forward to, of course, the big race this weekend, the Preakness Stakes. In the most 2020 thing, not only is the Preakness being ran on October 3rd, but it actually will end up being the third jewel of the Triple Crown. We're used to it, of course, being the second jewel right after the Kentucky Derby. Let me just run through the contender, or no, not the contenders. I will run through all the horses here with their lines, as I did actually watch the post show and was very interested to see some of these lines. But on the one, it will be Accession at 30-1. Mr. Big News is on the in the 2-hole at 12-1. Morning Line. Art Collector. That name might ring a bell. This was a horse that was possibly a Kentucky Derby contender until it was pulled out because of an injury. Obviously ready to roll for Brian Hernandez, but that horse is 5-2. Is not the Morning Line favorite, but is the second choice. Swiss Skydiver, the only filly in this race, the first filly since 2014 to run in the Preakness, and looking to be the first filly since Rachel Alexandria in 2011, I believe that was. That horse went on to win Horse of the Year for a filly. That's very impressive. But Swiss Skydiver is 6-1 for really arguably the top filly in the world. And then the 5 horse is 1,000 Words. This is a Bob Baffert horse, 6-1. Florian Giroux gets the ride. Look, I don't know if this is Jesus's team, Jesus's team. I'm not sure. I don't know who, if I would make anybody mad. I feel like however you go, you're making someone mad. So the team is 30-1. They will be on the 6th hole. New York Traffic, of course, ran in the Derby, lost by 13 lengths. Anyways, 15-1 in the 7. The 8 horse is Max Player, 15-1. Another Kentucky Derby graduate, if you will, finished 7 lengths off the lead. And then, of course, we get to the 9 horse, Authentic. The horse that, for me, Princess Nora might have been the best horse overall, but Authentic's Kentucky Derby ride for me was the best run I've seen from any horse this year. Please feel free to go back and watch and understand that he looked Tiz the Law in the eye and ran away from him, which I don't know if any horses are going to ever be able to do that again. The 10 horse, Authentic is in the 9 hole and is 9-5 in the Morning Line. The 10 is Pneumatic, another, or actually ran in the Belmont. That's what it was. Ran in the Belmont. Joe Bravo is aboard. The 3rd horse for Steve Asmussen in this race, I believe, 20-1 for Pneumatic. And the final horse is Live Your Beast Life. 30-1 for Jorge Abreu. But for me, actually, you know what, Raider Jim, I'll pass it over to you. What are your thoughts so far on this Preakness?
Yeah, the field, it's interesting. To me, it's a smaller to average field. There's only the 11 entries. Bob Baffert has 2 entries in the field. And anytime Baffert has a horse in there, there's good odds that you're going to end up in the money, whether you bet his horse to win, place, or show. Odds are you will cash your ticket in if you put some money on that horse. But Authentic, as Brandon was saying, Authentic is just a different caliber horse right now. When they ran the Kentucky Derby, he actually went off at 8-1 and won the race wire to wire. He paid $18.80 on a win ticket, which is nothing to sneeze at, as Brandon alluded to. He did go down the stretch with Tiz the Law and Barclay Tags. Tiz the Law just could not put enough on the pedal to get him across the line. So Authentic is definitely the hands down favorite, and Art Collector at 5-2. That's also a safe bet. The other thing I like to look at when I'm looking at the horses is what was in their most recent race, how did they do? And in that most recent race, what was the equal base speed rating? Authentic comes in at 109, which is just about the top of the game for this field. Swiss Skydiver also came in at a 109 in the Kentucky Oaks. Kentucky Oaks came in second place, but beat a horse called Gamine, who was, in my mind at that time, was the horse to beat. Swiss Skydiver beat that horse, but they both lost to a 15-1 long shot. She Dares the Devil. So anything can happen on race day. It's kind of like any other sporting event. On any given day, the champion can go down. Now, one of the interesting ones out there is also 1,000 Words, the other Bob Baffert entry. Baffert has won the Preakness 7 times, and that's to say something. So the odds of him winning this time around in an 11-horse field, it's not unlikely at all. It's very likely. 1,000 Words, equibase speed rating of 107. He won the Shared Belief Stakes at Del Mar, 4-horse field, but this is one of those, that's an interesting race to look at and to reference. Brandon made the remark, you're not ever going to go out and bet every horse in the field because you're probably not going to win anything. And as that is the rule, that's the rule I live by myself. But in this 4-horse field, if you were to put $5 on every horse to win, this horse crosses the line at 9-1, you get a major money and then some. But more importantly, 1,000 Words proved that is a horse to be reckoned with, and it can compete with the Grade 1 big boys. New York Traffic, I felt New York Traffic got bumped around a little bit. Nothing illegal. I'm not claiming controversy. Maybe it was a stumble. I can't quite remember what happened in the Kentucky Derby, but had a bad run in the Kentucky Derby. The equibase speed rating was way down to like a 91, but I think if New York Traffic can get a good break and get some room on the outside, there's a chance that he can at least finish in the money. At 15-1, it might be worth a look. Now, if you look at the entire field, you're going to see a lot of familiar names. And the other thing you're going to notice is a lot of these horses have run against one another. And these jockeys, these combinations have all run against each other, be it in the Kentucky Derby, be it in the Belmont, or one of the other stakes races of late. But a lot of these people, there's very, very familiar people on the that are going to be on the track. One of the jockeys that's riding, the jockey riding Swiss Skydiver, and that's Robbie Alvarado. Robbie Alvarado is a well-known name back on the East Coast. This is his 9th time in the Preakness. In 2007, he won the race riding the horse Curlin. So the winner's circle for Robbie Alvarado is he's no stranger to it, and don't be surprised if he pulls off something magical with Swiss Skydiver.
You know, for me, I started Art Collector, and as much as I talked about, I don't know why, but I always want to call, okay, it's Authentic. I think I've remarked to you before, but I always want to call this horse Affirmed, but it's Authentic anyways. I really do think Authentic is going to be a 1 to 2, 2 to 5. I tend to stay away from those. Once that happens, I do think numbers like Art Collector at 5 to 2 are probably going to maybe balloon up a little bit. I really like Art Collector, but only one loss for Authentics, and it was to Honor AP. Now, Honor AP recently retired. Now, nothing catastrophic, but just won't race anymore. Believe me, he'll make a lot more money in breeding and stud, but he won't race anymore. So the only horse that ever beat Authentic was Honor AP. Well, I go back to, where am I? 1,000 Words. Or, oh my goodness, there to go. Yes, I'm sorry, 1,000 Words. And you brought it up, the Shared Belief. The reason why 1,000 Words was 9-1 in a race, or in a race that had only 4 horses was because I believe Honor AP went off at like 1 to 5. And right. really, I don't want to say, crap the bed, but really didn't run as you would have expected a horse like Honor AP, a top 5 horse. Now, what we know now, I think it makes a little more sense. It was probably the beginning of kind of the buildup or whatever Cook Honor AP out ended its career was probably beginning there. But this horse at least has been there. It knows how to win against really one of the top horses. I know it was only a 4-horse field, but another mile and 16th that year, I believe. That was a wire-to-wire win as well for 1,000 Words. Now, once again, not nearly as impressive with 4-horse field, but when you are up against a horse like Honor AP, which isn't exactly going to jump right out, it does at least push the pace. Swiss Skydiver for me, I got to say, about 80% of the reason I watched the draw show to see where they put them in the post was to see what the morning line was going to be on Swiss Skydiver. 6-1. Man, I go back to Derby weekend, and what a fun weekend that was. It was a lot of fun handicapping the build up to it. For me, I was more excited for the Kentucky Oaks. Swiss Skydiver versus Gamine. That was the top filly matchup, and then it's everybody else. I mean, that's how I handicapped the race. It was almost like I was handicapping two different races. Who's going to win this match race, and who's the best of the rest? Now, obviously, She Dares the Devil did what she did in one of the more jaw-dropping runs of the year, but it was still second and third with Swiss Skydiver and Gamine, and Swiss Skydiver came in second. Obviously, this is a jump up to the boys. This is, the pretty much no gender classifications. If you think you're good enough, you can run in this. It's going to be very interesting to see how this horse runs. I really wish she would have ran better, obviously, right? But I wanted to see a little bit more out of her for me to really think that she could take down Art Collector. It's going to be difficult, and I keep wanting Authentic. I keep wanting to call the horse a firm, or even 1,000 Words. So as much as I'm really intrigued by Swiss Skydiver, I think I'm going to stay away. I like 1,000 Words and Art Collector to maybe spoil the party. Or if my exotic I might go with would be a trifecta box with Art Collector, 1,000 Words, and Authentic. Now, I'm not, going off on too big of a limb there, but at the same time, anytime you can hit a trifecta in a big race, it will pay you a little bit. So interesting for the Preakness, but I'm really excited for this race. I'm really excited mainly to see how Swiss Skydiver runs against the boys.
Right. And because it's like you say, it's in any sport, you're always going to have the elite athletes. You have the elite women's NBA players, WNBA players, I should say. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to compete or even try to compete with any of those athletes. But if you put them on the court with the big guys in the NBA, they will hold their own, but the NBA players are probably going to fare much, much better. And that's just the way it is. And that could be very much the case with Swiss Skydiver, but it'll be interesting to see. And again, there's a lot of other factors involved. This isn't a basketball game. It is, what kind of a break do you get out of the gate? How's the conditions on the track? Weather at Pimlico on Saturday is supposed to be fine. I think they have a little bit of rain today. They're supposed to get some rain on Sunday possibly, but for Saturday race time, they're calling for a nice fall, mid-60s. It should be great conditions for a race, and it's going to be post time around 2:30 Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah, and I go back, for me, my favorite horse of all time, doesn't matter, just happened to be a filly, was Zenyatta. And I remember Zenyatta in the Breeders' Cup Classic pretty much not going toe-to-toe with the boys, but beating the boys in dominating fashion. And in terms of the fillies, and I really do believe a lot of it's size. We're talking about, if Authentic is, bigger than Swiss Skydiver, it's going to take less strides. That's just fact. I mean, I'm not a scientist or anything, but you just know people with longer strides, animals with longer strides, it's going to take them less to get to the finish. Now, once again, this doesn't mean it can't be done. The fact that it's been 6 years since we've seen a filly in the Preakness isn't terribly, just because it's usually the second race in the Triple Crown. And generally the Belmont is when you see kind of these horses that have had a good summer, but maybe Kentucky Derby time weren't quite there yet, but maybe won that race around that time and said, hey, you know what, let's give it a run in the Belmont. That's why it's been so hard before California or American Pharoah did it. It was so hard to win the Triple Crown because by the time you got to the Belmont, there were a lot of really good horses who hadn't run any Triple Crown races and they were just fresh. So it was very difficult. But in this situation with the Preakness now being the third leg and Swiss Skydiver being for me the top filly at that level, at 3-year-old level, I can't wait to see it. But I really do think it's going to come down to Art Collector and Authentic. If Thousand Words can sneak in there, awesome. But I really think it's going to be a match with those two. And for me, like I said, I can't not watch the Kentucky Derby and go any other way. It's the best run I've seen this year, maybe in a while. I'd have to really think about it. But with everything surrounding it, wire to wire in the Kentucky Derby, I mean, 18 horses, 17. I know some scratched towards the end. I think actually it might have been 17 because I think they lost one late. But still, wire to wire, and you get caught by 'Tis the Law, and you run away from it. I don't have enough superlatives to talk about that run, so it's hard for me to go away. The value won't be there, but I really like the trifecta. I think you're really safe with that trifecta with those 3 horses. But my goodness, I would love to see Swiss Skydiver spoil the party. It would just be such a nice little, wow, okay, we got a horse of the year race on right now. Not just filly of the year, that might be horse of the year.
Oh yeah, definitely. If Swiss Skydiver can cross the line ahead of the rest of this field, then that would be definitely worthy of all types of accolades. It's just going to be a great race. You'd like to look at the field and say there must be somebody who looks like they are the standalone that can spoil the party. Any one of these horses, or there's a handful of the horses that can, but when you look at Authentic and what Baffert has done, again, he's won this race 7 times. He's had Triple Crown winners in this race. In 2018, he had Mike Smith riding on the back of Justify. And that was the second jewel of the crown when he won it. And then he went on to win the Triple Crown. And of course, before that, the horse you just mentioned, American Pharoah, back in 2015. This is quite a historic race, and I love the history of all these racetracks on the East Coast, and Pimlico is definitely up there. They're in the middle of, not in the middle, they're in the beginning of $250 million in renovations to this racetrack because it was just called upon. They were concerned that they were going to have to demolish buildings and possibly the Preakness wasn't going to get to be held there and move it to Laurel, but things have worked out very well and are going to work out very well for all the operators of Pimlico. Hats off to the Stronach Group who runs that race course along with several others on the East Coast and the West Coast. They also hold the interest for Santa Anita. It's going to be just a fantastic race, and you'll see it live on NBC as well.
Yeah, and Raider Jim talked earlier about watching the lines, the morning lines. I would say for me, the one that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to is, like I said, Swiss Skydiver. I want to see what, because this is all the public. It's almost kind of like Survivor, or, you know, like they're voting at this point, you know, because really the public at some point in a way is setting the odds when it's all said and done. I really want to see which way I really think it's going to work its way down. I think there are people like myself. Now, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to bet the horse, but I might root for it. But there are going to be people that just, they want to see this filly win. They want to see this filly perform well. Now, while it's a good story, it's also one of those things, anything less, like I said, anything less than 6-1 for this horse, I think is a little short priced for me. Like I said, it's nothing against this horse. It's just, I mean, we're talking about LeBron James on the course right now. Authentic is the top dog in the world, or at least in North America. I don't quite know everywhere. I'm sure it's the world, but I'm not going to, at least North America. But watch those lines, and same thing with Art Collector. It's 5-2 morning line. I don't know how much it will balloon because it's probably going to be, you know, an Authentic 2 to 5, 3 to 5, and then Art Collector maybe 2 to 1, and then everything else will be 5 and 6 to 1 plus. And also what Raider Jim said with 1,000 words. Watch out for those 3 horses. Follow the lines on those. Like I said, if you can get even money on Authentic, do it. You won't, but do it. I'm just going to throw it out there just in case. I don't want that person, oh, well, you never bet even money. Well, with Authentic, I would. I'll tell you that right now. But very, very excited, as Raider Jim kind of alluded to, for this race. It will obviously be the final jewel of the Triple Crown. No one horse will win it this year, but I don't think anybody really expected. Even, Tis the Law, it would have been a hell of an achievement with everything that's been going down for that to happen. We won't see Tis the Law in this race, but really this is the last big race until we hit Breeders' Cup weekend. Obviously, as I said, this is the only win and you're in race of the weekend. Raider Jim, final thoughts from what has been really a very, very informative podcast.
Well, one more thing,
Oh, yeah.
Going back to the gender factor here, Swiss Skydiver, the lady in the field. Here's one thing to keep in mind, and one of the things I mentioned when I gave my brief rundown on the horses, the Equibase speed rating. Now, I used the analogy of WNBA players going up against NBA players, female versus the male. If you take, let's go to track and field. If you take a track athlete, female track athlete who can do 100 meters, 10-2, 10-3, and she goes against a male sprinter who can do 100 meters, 10-2, 10-3, and you put them on the track at the same time, guess what? That's going to be a race. So keep this also in mind, just to give you one more thing to throw your money in the air and go, what are these guys talking about? They didn't give me a straight answer. Swiss Skydivers Equibase speeding rate in the Kentucky Oaks was 109. Authentic's Equibase speed rating in the Kentucky Derby was 109. So different distances, yes, I understand, but still the speed is there. And this is going to be head-to-head. It's going to be on the dirt, mile and 3/16, as it always is. There's $1 million purse on the line. So Swiss Skydiver, Brandon Ferst is on to something. Brandon Ferst is right. This horse could come in there and just make everybody smile if she puts in a good performance and gets herself the yellow roses at the end of the race.
I agree also with what you said in terms of the analogy. So, because we talk about, basketball, look, a lot of what we're talking about there is just the physicality of things. Okay, well, and like you said, in the track and field, you don't start, boxing out with each other stuff thing. You're in the starting blocks and you go. Without a doubt, if Swiss Skydiver is going to win this race, it has to be a clean break. She cannot get muddled up. I know you talked about, I'm not quite sure what horse it was you talked about that kind of got maybe a bit of a rough start. If that happens, and nothing inquiry, nothing. Sometimes, hey, things happen. That bell goes, horses may be a little off to the right, they bump. It happens in the beginning. If that happens, I just don't think, because like I said, maybe just it's a bit of, that elbow and you just, little bit of your wind gets knocked out of you. Now, I will say this, a mile and 3/16, if I actually think those extra, whatever, 1/8, I was terrible with fractions, but 2/16, 1/8, whatever you want to call it, that might help. That little extra bit to get to the rail or get to that turn, wherever this horse wants to be, that extra little bit of mileage to where maybe she's a little more comfortable and doesn't have to maybe bully or try to bully her way into the rail or this or that. She can maybe hang back just a little bit and with that extra bit of mileage. But we're really going to find out. And I think those are really the two biggest stories is, can Authentic do what he did again? And really for me, like I said, can Swiss Skydiver do it, period? And I love that you brought up the speed numbers of 109. Folks, a 109, that is, we're talking A-plus stuff, near perfect stuff. When you're over 100, you're a world-class horse. And to do that at that level, Wow.
And Authentic and Swiss Skydiver are the only two horses in the field that registered 109. The closest after that was a 107. Baffert's other horse, 1,000 Words. And Florent Guiraud, that jockey, he also is very, very, very well known to a lot of folks on the East Coast, maybe not so much on the West Coast, but again, he knows that there's a reason Baffert has him on the back 1,000 Words.
Definitely. And I believe it might be no, I think it's here. I think we have a Joe Bravo sighting too. He's a big East Coast guy. Yeah, he's on pneumatic, but it's really going to be an interesting race. Like I said, can Swiss Skydiver do it? All eyes are going to be on her if they're not on Authentic, and then could possibly 1,000 Words, or any of the others come in and spoil the party. Final thoughts, Mr. Martinez?
I will not be missing this race again. I've really got the same three horses on my card that you do on yours, and that's going to be Authentic, Art Collector, and then I will go ahead and roll. I'm going to roll 1,000 Words in there in two, because I really think that horse at 6-1, you can't miss. And I think that both of Baffert's horses are going to perform very, very well on Saturday.
Agreed. I fully agree. And I talk about all the time, is the process is, in my mind, more important than the outcome. Now, if you get the process right, in terms of handicapping, and then, hey, She Dares the Devil just comes out of nowhere and beats the two best fillies in the country, the outcome didn't go, but the process was right. I like Swiss Skydiver more than Gamine. It came out right. It was just maybe a little off. In this situation, I look at 1,000 Words, and like Raider Jim said, in that shared belief, there was only one horse that beat Authentic, and it was Honor AP. Well, 1,000 Words just beat Honor AP last time out, and I understand Honor AP, there are question marks about the health at the time, but that enough for me is to invite 1,000 Words into the conversation and into that try box that I'm going to enjoy, and might be really one of the first times in a long time that I might be actively rooting against myself, because if I don't bet Swiss Skydiver, I will still be rooting very hard for her. Now, if she comes in second or third and really just blows up my trifecta box, I will not be a very big fan. But if she's going to come in and spoil anything, she better take the roses, damn it. But I'm really, really like Raider Jim. Not going to miss this for anything. It's going to be a fantastic race. All eyes on Pimlico this weekend. And we will be back next weekend or next Thursday to break it all down. And until further notice, we are going to only be on SoundCloud through myself, FerstReport, and YouTube. We'll get back onto other major podcast platforms in a bit, get some things ironed out. But for now, it'll be YouTube and SoundCloud. So thanks for bearing with us, but we're still here for you. And hey, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, RaiderJim1090, FerstReport. Put the @ in front of it, and you'll find us. And we'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction or give you our thoughts on things. So thank you.
Absolutely. Bet safe, stay safe, wear your mask.
Amen. Thank you all so much for Raider Jim. I am Brandon Ferst, aka FerstReport represent. And it is.
Peace out, everybody.
Take care. Have a wonderful day. Go wash your hands. Go Padres.